Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And I've been spending a lot of time on my new game, Invasion Normandy. And if you saw my most recent video on all my favorite games and reasons why and whatnot, yeah, it's been a very interesting week here. But I thought I would finish off my spring break with a good old solo game of Axis and Allies Europe. And if you're not familiar with the game, essentially the Germans are trying to capture Moscow. That's what they're trying to do. There's really no other goal that's attainable. Now, there are minor goals, like the convoy zones, which can be painful for the British early on, and possibly the Americans, depending on that first round of dice rolling. The Germans are also trying to get into the Middle East. If you're not familiar with this one, very simply, there are $8 worth of Middle Eastern oil to be taken by the Germans. But when they take it, they don't get the money. What happens is that you keep track of how many they've taken, and that comes out of the pockets of the Allies, and the Allied player will decide who's going to pay. In many cases, it ends up being America, just because they typically have a bit more cheddar to spend. But not always, but typically. It's definitely not coming out of the Soviets. They need all the money they can get. Now, a couple of differences from this game to the old ones is that if we look at the attack board, you can see that subs attack at a 2 and defend at a 2, but also armor attacks at a 3 and defends at a 2. So, there you go. That's pretty much the biggest changes there, and everything else is pretty much status quo. Carriers don't really play into it. There are no carriers in the setup, and there typically are no carriers built during this game. I think maybe I've seen 1 or 2 built by the British when the Germans start going big on subs, so the British will build their destroyers and then throw in a carrier to bolster that. But for the most part, carriers don't get to see the light of day in this game. And if Russia ever builds a carrier and they've got the money to do it, that's pretty much game over for the Germans. So we're going to give this a roll here. We're just starting out. So this is the setup. And on we go with round 1. I don't know. Sometimes these infantry can be pretty deadly. Heading into round 2, and this is likely the best German start I have ever seen in this game. They did very well, losing just a couple of units, and they were able to wipe out every single boat in the Atlantic and still have enough to convoy 2 British zones. So, all the Americans and Brits did this turn was built destroyers. They had to do it. The Germans just have too many. They start with 10. They've got 8 left over. I didn't even build any. That's how successful they were. We did lose a German fighter up in the English Channel. And we did lose 3 or 4 infantry on the Eastern Front. That's to be expected. But a very successful turn. Now, for round 2 here, you can see that the Russians have backed up. It's always temptation to just head in there. And I will a little bit, but you can see that the Soviets have a lot of punch coming back, and they've got a lot of infantry here to absorb hits. So their tanks, if you play it properly as the Russians, your tanks can survive till the final battle. If you do it right. Try not to use them too often, and use your infantry and your air power just to overwhelm the Germans. But the problem for the Russians this round is that the Germans have no fear of an Allied landing for at least 2 more rounds, because they have no transports on the board, and with 10 German subs, they can do some damage. Now, these 4 destroyers here, that's probably too tough a nut to crack right now, even though I can hit it with 4 subs. 6 subs, I can take those out and hit it. Probably wouldn't be able to do much damage, but I think I'll definitely go after the British ones, and then we will try to convoy the Soviets and continue convoying the British, although we might go for the bigger ones and see what the Americans do about that. But the Germans just built land units, some artillery men and tanks. And tanks got built in northern Italy just to get them into Romania right away. Help out on the southern front where you tend to have fewer units. And in Africa, not much else went on. But Malta, I decided to take Malta. It cost me an infantry, but I killed a fighter. Because that fighter, when it flies over here, can just be that one unit that just causes you lots of grief. So we're going to load up a man and artillery, come over here, and try to land in the Eastern Med. Now this is a little dicey, not horribly dicey, but a little, in that the battleship can take 2 hits before it sinks. The destroyer only needs 1, and this is shooting at a 4, and this is shooting at a 3, but we all know how those dice can be. So if everything goes according to plan, should work out all right. The bomber, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would not be able to reach. I don't think so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I guess it could. It could come and land in Crete or Libya. So I might even bring down the bomber just to give me 2 4s, because I certainly do not want this and this getting sunk with troops loaded on it, because that might hand Africa to the British, which you do really want to take this oil money if you can, as the Germans. So that's the end of round 1. Round 2, we'll see if the Germans' U-boats will have the same success that they had early on in round 1. Here we go. Round 2 coming up. All right, round 3 is about to begin. We've had a slight shifting in the tide here. So to start this round off, the Germans came and took Karelia and had 4 units there, but then the Russians came back with 3 artillery, 4 men, and a fighter, and they were able to take it without loss. Germans got no hits. Same in Belorussia. There were 2 Germans here, and there were 2 Germans here, 2 infantry in each. They were taken out, I believe, without loss. Maybe there was 1 loss in Belorussia, but definitely a little bit of a momentum shift there. Also, I felt like sending some tanks down here. The Germans swept aside the British and only lost 1 man doing it. Now, of course, you can see their fleet is gone. And without the fighter that usually they have, a little tougher. I was thinking about retreating them, but there's really nowhere to go. And if I had retreated them, then they could only go to Palestine, and the Germans would just land in Palestine, and the tank would have just come through. So I don't know if it would have made that much difference. Of course, it could have, but unlikely that much of a difference. But now I'm thinking 2 Russian tanks down here can make all the difference. Now the Germans are tooled up to bring over lots of stuff. I even had my whole build here. I'm hoping to shuttle, and then possibly shuttle this way. The Eastern Front, though, definitely the Germans have bulked up quite a bit here. Lots of infantry headed towards the front. Oh, I think... No, that's right, because I put my build there. Maybe I put my guys there, but no, this is from the first turn and the first build. They're all in there. These guys here were in Eastern France, and they've come across since. Up here, the Germans have 2 U-boats in Archangel, the convoy for the Soviets, but they have no more anywhere in the Atlantic, and this was a clean sweep. This was a real drubbing. They had a destroyer here, a sub here, and a sub here, and at the end of the turn they have nothing left. But it was the Americans that had to do it. The Germans came up here with 4 subs to kill 2 destroyers. Only got 1 destroyer, lost all 4 subs. So not a good trade-off. And once you start losing subs in the Atlantic, it's really not economically feasible to try to get more, because they're $8 a pop, as you can see from the thing here. $8 a pop, and everything's a bit more. Destroyers are 12, but they shoot at 3 and defend at 3. So a little bit more powerful than subs. So on the last round, though, the Russians were only able to pick up $18, and the British were only able to pick up $14 because they had lost the $11 here, and yeah, they were hurting pretty badly. The Americans paid for the $1, by the way, that the Germans took from the Middle Eastern oil fields. So this is where we're at right now. Lots of big stacks here for the Soviets, and a red chip, of course, denoting a 6 unit, well, 5 units plus the guy is 6. So they have quite a bit here. They've got about 40 or so infantry, which is far more than what the Germans have, but the Germans will be punching harder with their stacks of tanks. Pretty typical for this game. But now the British have a transport on the board and the Americans have 2 transports on the board. Now, granted, neither of them can cause any immediate grief. It'll be 2 more rounds until they're landing, so the Germans do have time to tool up for that. Meanwhile, the Soviets, will they be holding on? So this is the decision time for the Germans. Is, do we try to do the death of 1,000 cuts, or do we go for the heart and make the Russians attack us with 1s, and then a couple of 2s and a 3 and a 4, and we defend at 2s? That's the big decision. So I think I'll probably go for Ukraine, and I'll try to do it in force so that they can't take it back, and then really pressure Stalingrad. Once you take over Stalingrad, Archangel, or Leningrad, you can then build 1 unit per round there. So that does help the Germans a little bit, being able to build there. But by the time they're taking this, they typically also want to be spending money here because the Allies will be landing shortly. A great game. It's a little bit of an unorthodox start. That first round, Britain, not much money. Russia, hurting for certain. So we gonna have to do something about that. And sometimes the Americans come down here, do the Operation Torch, and then work their way across. I don't know. We'll have to see. We have a lot of destroyers here. We have 5 American destroyers and 2 British destroyers, and with only 2 U-boats left, so there's not a lot they're really going to be doing. But hey, they're there to protect from any air attacks that may happen. And the Germans still have decent air force. They've got 5 fighters and a bomber left, so still got some stuff. And of course, they get to build first, so we'll see what they build here on round 3. Yeah, turn 4 coming up, and once again the board changes mightily. You can see there's not much left up here. I retreated everything back towards Moscow because, yeah, came in with pretty much every German unit that could make it into Ukraine. Took that with authority, and so I've got the Russians in a hightail retreat back into Moscow. And with more stuff on the way here, it is likely that they'll just be turtling at this point, which, that happens in this game. If the Germans don't take Stalingrad and Leningrad at some point, then the Russians likely are winning the game. Here in the Middle East, I sent a couple of Russian tanks. I don't think I mentioned that last time. And we've kind of coagulated down here. So now the Germans are going to be able to scoop up Syria and Transjordan, no problem. But after that, there might be an attack by the Russians. We'll see. And maybe the British will sneak back into Transjordan. So this is where this transport comes in handy. And I built a second transport over here to shuttle some things. And the Americans, I knew this was going to happen. So he's going to be headed over here. And the battleship will probably come over. And we'll probably build some destroyers here. Because I feel pretty good about this as Germany. But there is an awful lot of Russian stuff. Now, granted, they're not collecting much money. On this last turn, they only collected 16, and it's not so good. The British collected their full amount, though, because we know that the U-boats were gone. And so this is what we look like over here. Built a British transport and destroyer, I think. So just trying to no, actually, I just built a transport because I only had $14. So I built a transport, and then I saved 6, and we're gonna have a good load up next time. So we got 2 British transports, 2 American transports have come over, and there are 3 more loaded up, ready to come over. That cost me 45, so I won't be able to do that again this turn, but I can come over and start dropping things off. That'd be great. Gonna try to keep the U-boats, because I actually thought, hey, maybe I'll start building U-boats this way, but that's a quick stop. That's why it's tough playing by yourself. You can always outthink yourself. I got a couple of bombers here that might start seeing an action over Germany. It's always tough. you really want boots on the ground in this game. So I'm probably going to send these guys, send the allies into Norway to get things going, and hopefully try to relieve some pressure up north and continue to build things, of course, for Britain and America, so we can start landing in France proper. These subs are still up here, but they're not long for this world now. If they stick around here, they will not be alive by the end of the round. I can pretty much guarantee that. We got air power and a bunch of destroyers, so should be in trouble. That's pretty much it for what's going on. But that's good stack of tanks there. I believe there are 14 tanks sitting right there in Ukraine. That's a lot of tanks. So Caucasus, Stalingrad, and Belarus are likely going to fall, and Leningrad will likely fall. But then it really depends on what the Soviets decide to do in response. Will they be able to hold off for a few more rounds and get the Allies threatening Berlin? Or were the opening rounds too devastating with those U-boats? Time will tell. Here we go. Well, we see it a lot in these games I play where the dice get kind of crazy, and what a difference a turn makes. So the entire Wehrmacht here in the Soviet Union was wiped out, save a small garrison in Leningrad and some guys coming down from Karelia. Now the Soviets don't have much left. They're on bread and water over here. They were able to kind of clean house, and the Germans are going to be a little bit scrambly trying to get some more pressure on Russia. Now, Russia only collected 14, I believe, in the last round. They had one from before, so they had 15. They don't have a ton of money, but that's going to go up now for a couple of reasons. Down here in the Middle East, the British are making a royal nuisance of themselves, but the Germans do have enough to take everybody out here if the dice cooperate, and they were able to start bringing some guys over. And, I think this guy's actually supposed to be here. Pardon me. He went back and forth. I forgot to move him. And then our new one brought these guys down, and we'll ship some more guys over. But they do have to be careful because, yes, the Americans' Operation Torch has happened, and they have landed with some force here, and that could be a bit of a problem. So the German battleship will have to come into play, and likely at least one destroyer to try to settle this issue before it gets out of hand. And what do we got over here? Norway is now under British control, and the Americans are there as well. We have a decent number of things here. We got 8 units plus a plane, so decent number. Nothing that can really assault the Germans. Again, kind of one and done, and not much follow up, right? Just mostly infantry here in Britain, and the Americans have a little bit of a response coming here. Not a shuck so much, but that's hard for them to do in this game because everything's too far away. Now, something I didn't do this game that looks like I didn't need to, at this point anyway, is that any Allied units that end up in the Soviet Union, at the end of the Soviets' turn, they can change them into Soviet units or leave them as whoever they are. So if the British fly over some fighters, they can stay British or become Soviet at the end of the Soviet turn. I did not do that this turn, mainly because I forgot. Well, these things happen, don't they? So that is why. And some of you might have been saying, why isn't he flying over some fighters? Because, otherwise these fighters tend to just sit here and they don't do anything. And just on this last round, I went, wait a second. So that's what happens when you don't play a game for a long time. But other than that, the British actually ended up getting rid of the convoy here. Lost the destroyer doing it, unfortunately, but they were able to silence the U-boat threat. So there are no more U-boats on the board, and at $8 a pop, likely won't be building them, even though they can be kind of devastating. The Russians, as you can see, there's not much left, but they also don't have much coming to get them. So they're feeling pretty good about things right now, I should think. All right, well, we'll see what Germany does here in the Middle East. If they can rip all these out of the control of the Allies and be sitting here with some, decent amount of stuff. That puts a little bit of pressure there. And of course, we do have a stack of 6 tanks they just built. They'll be sitting in probably East Poland at the end of this, along with a stack of infantry. So by no means a foregone conclusion, but with some transports over here and more on the way, it's kind of looking like Germany has got to play a little defense. But that usually means death in this game. So we'll see if we'll charge forward or just carry on. All right, we'll let you know. Turn 5 coming up. Heading to turn 6, and you can see the multinational force here in Moscow, and they're ready to defend. And the Soviets were able to push out a little bit here, take some stuff back, but the Germans aren't going anywhere. And they have quite a bit of stuff here. They'll probably take all this back, and Russians aren't doing too well here. They did collect 19 this turn, so good for them. But not much punch left here. So that's why the Allies flew this stuff over. That'll likely turn Soviet by the end of the Soviet turn, but they can't use it until the following turn. So yeah, it will remain to be seen if the Germans are able to put a good effort in on Moscow. Speaking of effort, yes, the entire Middle East is now in German hands. And, I don't think he can land there. And they brought in reinforcements here, so there's lots of stuff that's going to be able to help with the push up towards Moscow. So that should be pretty good for the Germans. However, in the north, they've lost control of Scandinavia and Finland. That's all gone to the Allies, and so Karelia will be reborn this turn. But Archangel and Leningrad are both in German hands. They built 1 tank there this turn, and next turn they'll be able to build something in Archangel. So that always makes it fun. We did do a bombing run with the Americans, and they did bomb for the max for 6. So that'll hurt Germany a little bit going forward. But down here, look at this, look at this. So you can see there's no American boats except for transports, and the German battleship is gone, and it had 2 destroyers with it. And over 2 rounds of combat, the 3 American destroyers sank the German fleet and vice versa. So that is done. Now these transports came in, and it's kind of unfortunate. They're going to die. Just a single plane from Yugoslavia can come in, but then it needs to land either in Malta or Libya, because it goes 1, 2, 3, only has 1 more spot. So can't land in Sicily. Americans took that. And Malta. Now, the reason I took this, by the way, you're wondering why I dropped 1 guy off there. The other guy just walked into Algeria. The reason I did that is to give Allied air power, such as it is, a place to land in case the Germans start to build up again here. They'd have a place to land from the United Kingdom. They could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and land in Sicily. Now the Germans do have some transports here, so they might come back and just take it back. But that's using stuff that they really want to use in Russia. And because these bombers are going to be Russian in a moment, and the one up here will likely be Russian, might not be worth it. But hey, it's just one of those strategy tips that I learned a long time ago and thought I'd share it with you here. Small follow-up to Torch, just 4 units, but nothing in the area can kill them, so they could come up here and do something with France, or they can come into Vichy, France, or just drop more guys off in Africa, and another trickle getting ready. The British made their build up here because of this lone bomber. The German bomber, I didn't want it coming out and doing anything, and you're wondering, where's the whole fleet? Yep, they died. It cost the Germans 2 fighters, but they sank 3 destroyers, three destroyers and about 6 transports, I think, 4 or 6 transports. So that was well worth it, good trade. But the Germans are very low on aircraft now, just 3 on the board. Might buy 1 next turn, but they really need boots on the ground right now. So we are likely going to stick with the plan. Plus we got to pay off some damage to the factory. So that is where we're at right now, heading into round 6. And it's anybody's ball game. These dice are being crazy. We'll see what happens round 6. Will Moscow be under siege again? All right, turn 7 is going to see the battle for Moscow, but as you can see, the Allies have been able to kind of chip away at the German holdings here in the north, and Leningrad was taken back. But the Germans do have 14 tanks and about 6 or 7 men ready to go into Moscow. Now, the Muscovites do have a number of guys there, and they did get some help. Now, here's the big problem, is you got these bombers that only defend at a 1. They do have 4 fighters and artillery, but when do you start peeling off bombers to save Moscow is the question. So, that will have to be answered. I think Germany almost looks like it's a one-and-done thing here, but we'll see, because the Allies kind of look like one-and-done as well. So the Germans could take back Leningrad with this, but I don't think I'd need all of it, and I think I might need a bit of a follow-up here into Russia. In the south, the Germans were in the Caucasus. They were able to have some good fun there, but then the Russians came down and didn't lose anything. 2 tanks, and the fighter and the bomber came down and took care of the 4 German units without loss. But again, the Germans do have some backup here, so they will be likely wresting control from the Soviets. Now, over here, we have a little bit of fun going on here. The Americans, of course, lost their transports, and I decided to build a sub here in North Italy that scared off the other transports. We'll show you where they went. So the Americans now just have 3 units in Africa. They still own Sicily and 2 here, but they're not long for this world. And looks like the Germans might be able to just start taking things back down here. Not much was built in Germany because there really was no threat with no transports. It was built in northern Italy, and then the 2 subs. This is where the British are trying to build up their fleet. Still within range of the bomber and the sub, though. So likely have to take a poke at that. A 4 and a 2 versus 2 3s. But I tell you, if the 3s miss on the first round and these guys get at least 1 hit, that could be real bad news for the British, just trying to get the Merchant Marine back in order. Americans have all their stuff right out here in the mid-Atlantic. It's out of range of the bomber and the submarine, and they can land down in Africa, or they can go into France, or Netherlands, Belgium, or they can start heading north as well. But that remains to be seen, and a modest build over here. But these destroyers, they cost a lot. They cost 12, so not easy to crank out. So the thing about subs, though, is you kind of got to use them when you want to use them. You don't want to lose them. So there might be an attack that might have to happen here, and some more subs might need to be bought. The Germans can compete with the Soviets, of course. They can go toe-to-toe with them, no problem. The problem exists, of course, when the Allies start shipping things across the waves. That's the real problem, and that's why submarines, although expensive at $8, they sometimes are a necessary evil. We'll see what we do this turn with them here on round 7. We'll see if we try to go after the British fleet, and if we do, that'll take British kind of out of the war for a while, because they don't have any more aircraft and no other naval presence. They just got 1 tank, 2 men, a couple of fighters that'll probably be Soviet at the end of this, and we'll see if Moscow stands. Yeah, this 14 tanks can cause a lot of grief. That's a lot of 3s coming at the Russians here. So we'll see what happens on turn 7. All right, so this is turn 7, and as you can see, we've got a German attack here. I am going to do that, and we're also going to go after Leningrad, and we're going to come around here to Turkestan, I guess, and the Caucasus will be attacked by all these units. But this is the big battle. This is the big battle, and I think if this one goes pretty well, that might be it, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. You got to roll the dice. So the first thing we have is no German planes, although I could get 1 plane there. I wonder if it's worth it. You know what? We will. 1, 2, 3, and then it can land here for 4. So we're going to bring that bad boy in, and hopefully he doesn't get shot down. Okay, so no problem there. So for the Germans, we've got 6 infantry. Like 1, 2, 3, yeah. So 6 infantry, that's 6 at 1. I should have gotten all my dice up here together. I'm going to need all the blues. All right, that should be good. All right, so we have 6 ones for the Germans. Okay, 1 hit. We're going to use our handy dandy dice here. It tells us how many hits we have landed. There's 1 hit. And then we have, I believe it was 14. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 15 at 3. So we're going to roll 5 dice 3 times. 5 dice 3 times. 3. So that goes up to 4. That's at 4 now. That's the first roll of 3. Woofda. This is not looking good for the Soviets at all. And then the last roll. I'm kind of back down to earth, but 10 hits. 10 hits for the Germans. And I think this is kind of an existential threat here, so I think we've just got to forget about bombers for now. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think that was, so 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So there we go. So we've got 3 bombers at 1. Hey, look at that. We got 1 hit. All right, so 1 hit. And then we've got the 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 11 twos. Handy hit dice I got made years ago at a game store in Mission, BC that has since folded, unfortunately. COVID killed it. Well, that's a good roll. That's a good roll. 5. So that is now 6 total dice, or hits. So that'll get rid of all the infantry. And then we have 4 planes, and these planes just have to hit. There's nothing for it. They have to hit. And they did. So 4 planes, or 4 hits. So that's 4 tanks. All right. Well, they did all right. So 10 hits apiece, but the Germans just have more stuff. And yeah, this is not looking good. So there's 8 units left there. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's see here. So that's 6. Can't count today. 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11 units for the Germans, all shooting at 3. 8 units split between 2 and 4. So definitely the odds are favoring the Germans right now. So here's the Germans. There's 6 dice. They get 11 total. So here's 6. That's 4. Okay, so that's all these guys. And then they get 5 more dice. So they just need 4 more hits. Well, they got 3. So I think that's it, folks. They just need 1 more hit. So we've got 4 4s, 4 2s. Everybody needs to hit. Everybody needs to hit. Oh, sad. So 3 more hits. That's it. All right. So we've got, what do we got here? 7 tank divisions. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tank divisions coming in. And a little bit of the Luftwaffe. So 8 dice at 3. Just need 1 hit. Yeah. And will the final yak get a hit? No, it won't. Oh, just to pour salt in the wound. So the Germans end up with 7 tanks in Moscow. Well, let's roll these ones on the outskirts and see what happens. But with no money now, and I believe in this. I believe in this version. You take the money, but I'll look it up later. With no money and the Allies not having nearly enough stuff to help out right now, but we'll see. Okay, so the green, and this is for this battle here. So we got a green and a white and a blue. So the blue is the Soviet defender. Well, it doesn't matter that the one hopped out of the box. Soviet defender got killed and did not get a hit back. And now we have 4 at 2 versus 2 at 2. So I got to roll these separately. So 4 at 2, 2 at 2. Oh, the Germans' dice, I tell you, it's picking up. Picking up. Not looking too good right now. Not looking too good. Well, the last gasp they have, I was only going to send a couple or 3 things into here, so probably 3 men and 1 artillery. So that gives me 2 blues and 2 whites versus a 1 blue. Wait a second. Why did I roll all the dice? That was dumb. I'm going to roll that again. I probably don't have to, because with 2 blues, that means with only 1 tank. But I'll just roll it again. Here's the Russians. Okay, no hits. No hits. And the Russians, no hits. Oh my goodness. Forget what I said about the Russian or the German dice picking up. There we go. Finally, they get a hit. And the UK tank gets a hit in return. So 1 guy goes away. And the tank goes away. So this is what the board is going to look like at the end of this. We're going to have a man, 2 artillery, 1 man are going to be in Bielorussia. We'll just steal that guy from France. And this is going to be like this. And I don't like giving up too easily. I want to make sure that it's really a foregone conclusion here. So the Russians have 1 dude left on the board and no money, I believe. I'm just going to pause. Okay, I found it. Yes. It says when you capture a capital, you get all the money. Now, in this game, I mean, that it seems obvious that the game is likely over. Unless, of course, Germany just plunges through and there's big stacks of stuff around. But, it seems unlikely. So, yeah, Germany is going to pick the pocket of the Soviets to the tune of 18. And they're going to be putting on their build, which I forgot to actually put together. But I was definitely going to be buying at least 6 infantry to do some housekeeping down there. And we'll be flying the fighter back after this battle, if it's still alive. And I would, knowing I just took that, I would load this up with that. And all the Allies can land this turn would be these 3 transports coming into Germany there with 1 artillery and 5 guys. And that's if I didn't destroy them here. So let's do that battle there. And it's a little less of a foregone conclusion. So the green dice are going to be the Allies' dice, and the black and the red are the German dice. Okay, so then the Allies lose a destroyer. And the Allies never got a hit. Yeah, so this fleet's totally gone anyway. So, yeah. Yeah. That's game, folks. There's no sense dragging this out at this point. I don't see the Allies being able to do anything serious that will impact the game at this point. So they can just run around and grab everything. So good game for the Germans. That first round, I think, really helped because the British lost a lot of buying power on the first 2 rounds. Because they lost 6 in the first round, they lost 11 in the second round, and the Germans were just putting together a lot more stuff than the Brits could, so there was really no threat. So that's why I built pretty much nothing but ground pounders and sent them towards Moscow. And it seems to have worked, even with decent Allied help coming in the form of 3 fighters and a couple of bombers and some ground units here that are showing up, but they're a day late and a dollar short, unfortunately. Well, thanks so much for watching, folks. Hope you enjoyed the game. And as we always say here on the Hilltop Pillbox, hug your loved ones, thank your friends for playing, and may those dice be with you.